Now, thousands of people have been moving to vegetarianism in recent years in a bid to either save animals or save the planet. But one company is making the lifestyle choice compulsory if you still want to claim for your lunch expenses. A property development firm has said it will not reimburse employees for meals containing meat unless they have certain dietary requirements. So, is it right for the company to impose ethical rules on employees when it comes to food? Well, joining me now to discuss this are Matthew Lesh, Head of Research at the Free Markets think tank, the Adam Smith Institute, and Philip Mansbridge, UK Director at ProVeg, which promotes plant-based diets. Gentlemen, good to speak to you this evening. Matthew, if I could firstly start with you, what do you make of the move?
Look, in the first instance, I would unequivocally stand by the rights of a company to decide what they do and do not expense. But there's a few parts of the story that do make me feel uncomfortable. In the first instance, this idea of having a values committee at a workplace that not only decides potentially what people are allowed to think, but what they're allowed to do with their own bodies. They came to this decision through a vote of the staff members. Now, it seems like that kind of a vote would include a lot of intimidation. Unless you go by the majority worldview, you're going to be kind of silenced within the workplace. I think that's something you have to acknowledge. At the same time, I don't think these matters should be up for vote necessarily. These should be decisions that individuals make about what they consume rather than something that's made by the business they work for. Ultimately, this decision will really hurt employees who in fact do, for either dietary reasons or just the fact that they enjoy it, want to consume meat. So I'm very hesitant about trying to enforce this kind of moralising social change through people's employers.
Matthew, many would argue that this move is somewhat draconian.
I think in some ways you can say draconian. Of course, nobody is forced to work at this particular workplace. You can, of course, spend your own money however you like, and it is business money to spend. So it's not necessarily comparable, let's say, to a statewide or government ban of eating meat. But it is something that we should be wary about, the extent to which businesses try to make decisions for how people are supposed to live their lives outside of work.
Philip, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good thing. So I don't really agree that it's a bad measure at all. I mean, there's very clear links to do with environmental impact of meat. The company is one of those companies that's just living its values, and I think every company has a right to do that. The employees, they did vote. They didn't need to do that, but they did have a vote on it. The vast majority were in favour of that move. And ultimately, what you have to remember is that people can eat delicious, healthy food that doesn't happen to have meat in. Nobody's suffering from this, but the environment's gain it. I mean, we know there's big impacts with greenhouse gases. Animal agriculture accounts for about 14.5% of total greenhouse gases. That's more than every single bit of transport combined in the world. So people have to take a step. And I think little nudges like this are helpful to people.
And Philip, also, I mean, from your point of view, it creates a conversation, and that can only be a good thing.
Totally. I think, if you look at other interventions that happened, other little nudges, like if you look at the plastic bag levy, for example, all of us knew that plastic bags were really bad for the environment. Nobody thought that throwing away single-use plastic bags was a good thing. But they introduced just a 5p levy, and then our attitude changed because we were more aware of it. We were more conscious of it. It saved 300 million plastic bags in the first year and reduced pretty much overnight 90% of plastic bags being used. And it's just a little nudge, but everybody, people using bags, they weren't bad people. People eating meat aren't bad people. It's just about bringing that to their attention about the choices that we make as humans, that we can make other choices that have no impact on us, but they have a really big impact on the environment. I think that's to be celebrated. Yeah,
Matthew, a couple of interesting points there. I mean, for many people, it's a case of the mind is willing, but the body is weak. You know, they do want to make a change. They do want to make a difference. And if your employer is kind of encouraging you to do the right thing, that can only be a good thing.
I think we have to be very wary about these kind of nudges when it comes to humans' behaviour. I'm very uncomfortable with trying to manipulate and control people from a distance. If you take the example of plastic bag bans, although, of course, it's reduced the absolute number of plastic bags, the kind of plastic bags people use are now much thicker. It's not clear whatsoever that people use those bags enough actually to reduce the amount of plastic. And in any case, the amount of plastic contributed by plastic bags is a really tiny proportion of all the plastic. So something that might sound nice in the first place is actually just increasing people's costs to shop and making their lives slightly worse. What I'd actually like to see when it comes to the environmental footprint of agriculture is just a bigger discussion about cultured meat. I think there's great opportunities when it comes to those kind of innovative technologies to actually replace meat. Now, that's kind of lab-grown meat that tastes exactly the same as meat, but has 99% less environmental impact. Unfortunately, due to current regulations, particularly those that prevent gene editing, we can't have a lot of cultured meat in the EU, in the UK. So, for example, you can't actually have the Impossible Burger, which is taking the US by storm when it comes to reducing people's meat consumption. But unfortunately, because of the EU's biotech rules, you can't have something that involves gene editing because it has to be gene edited to have the equivalent taste. So there's a lot of potential for innovation here that will allow us to overcome these environmental challenges and reduce the amount of carbon emissions in the process.
I guess we could do soon now we're coming out of the European Union, or now we are out of the European Union, in fact. Philip.
Yes, I actually really agree with that. The future for cellular agriculture, so-called lab meat, is ginormous. I think we're a good 5 years away or so before that's commercially viable. But what that doesn't mean is that we should just do nothing now. We could work to a journey towards that. And there's also non-cell-based meat, which is already amazing, like available in the UK. Lots of very similar things to actually the taste, texture of real meat, but with a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the environmental impact, a fraction of the water, a fraction of the land, a fraction of the electricity, and a fraction of the greenhouse gases. So all of this stuff's available right now. But I don't think we should wait for the perfect solution, the silver bullet solution, like clean meat, lab meat. I think we should work towards there so that when that comes out, it's a bonus. But it's not like, let's carry on doing what we do, even though we know inside that it's bad, and we know there's a whole wealth of evidence to tell us scientifically that it's bad for the environment. So let's not carry on now. Let's make these little changes, and let's kind of applaud companies that are brave enough to kind of help us on that journey.
Matthew, a final thought from you?
Well, ultimately, I think we have a choice. We can go down the path of trying to nudge people, trying to control people, or we can actually go down the path of trying to provide them alternatives, embrace the innovation, the entrepreneurship that will enable us to overcome the challenges that we have.
Philip, final word from you.
Yes, I think there's technology, there's options. I think it's all about, like, there's a phrase, diet change, not climate change. Climate change is a big topic. It's hard for us to address it as an individual, but the one change you can make is just reduce your meat consumption, and it does have a difference. And if we all did it, climate change issues would be a lot better.
OK, Philip Mansbridge, Matthew Lesh, gents, appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.